Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. If you're a college student picking up Python for the first time, or maybe you're dreaming of becoming a machine learning engineer, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're going to systematically demystify one of the absolute coolest applications of artificial intelligence: how computers actually learn to recognize and classify images. Seriously, this is the exact same tech powering everything from medical diagnostics to the facial recognition that unlocks your phone. And by the end of our time together, you're going to know exactly how it works under the hood. So let's jump in. Here is our quick roadmap for today. We'll start with teaching computers to see, then cover supervised learning and labels, map out the entire machine learning lifecycle, dive into training, testing, and validation, and finally, we'll level up to deep learning for images and look at some massive real-world AI applications. Okay, part one, teaching computers to see. Let's tackle the foundational problem of how a machine actually perceives the visual world. Imagine you're showing hundreds of different fruits to a toddler. After seeing enough of them, they naturally just figure out how to tell an apple from a banana, right? But how in the world does a completely blank slate computer learn to recognize a human face or even just read a handwritten number? I mean, a computer doesn't have eyes. Well, it all comes down to translating our visual world into the only language a machine really understands, which is math. A perfect example of this is the legendary MNIST dataset. It's essentially this massive collection of handwritten digits that data scientists use to train image processing systems. Now, to you and me, we look at it and clearly see a 0 or a 1. But to a computer, those digits are just raw visual data. They're literally just grids of pixels. Let's break that down. A single handwritten digit from that dataset is quantified as a 28 by 28 pixel grayscale square. If you multiply that out, you get exactly 784 individual pixels. So the machine doesn't see a 0, it interprets a vector, basically a super long list of 784 numbers. And each of those numbers just represents grayscale intensity, ranging from 0 for pure black all the way up to 255 for pure white. Which brings us to part two, supervised learning and labels. Let's talk about how we actually teach the model what those numbers mean. So supervised learning is completely dependent on having a clear ground truth. When we feed those 784 pixels into our model, we don't just throw the data at it. We give it a label. We tell it definitively, hey, this thing right here is a 0. Then, as the model starts making its own predictions, it uses what's called a loss function. Think of a loss function as a way to measure exactly how far off the model's guess is from that actual ground truth label. The whole goal of training? Minimize that loss. It's constantly tweaking and adjusting its internal parameters until its outputs finally match reality. To do all this efficiently at scale, we've got to organize our data, and tabular data sets are the absolute standard here. The columns act as the features, and the rows represent each individual observation. So for image classification, a single row is one complete image. And the columns, yep, those are our 784 individual pixels. Then that very last column holds our label, our ground truth. This specific structure is the magic that allows an algorithm to mathematically process thousands and thousands of images. All right, part three, the machine learning lifecycle. Let's zoom out a bit and look at the big picture of an enterprise pipeline. This is a complete enterprise-grade machine learning journey. It kicks off with data preparation, collecting and cleaning up our images. Then we do feature engineering to convert that data into useful signals. Next is model training, where the algorithm actually learns the patterns. After that, we evaluate it to make sure it generalizes well, deploy it out into the real world, and finally continuously monitor it to make sure its performance hasn't drifted or degraded over time. Now, I really want to highlight feature engineering because it is absolutely vital here. This is where we take raw data, like those raw pixel values, and transform them into meaningful signals that the training algorithm can actually digest. We might be resizing images, normalizing pixel values, or chopping the image up into smaller, digestible patches. Essentially, we're trying to highlight the most important information so the model doesn't get distracted by random background noise. It's kind of like spoon-feeding a highly sophisticated toddler. And if you're a beginner wanting to build this lifecycle yourself, you're in luck because the tools are super accessible. You're going to rely on industry-standard environments like Jupyter Notebooks, usually managed through the Anaconda distribution. You'll write your code in Python, and you'll definitely want to leverage powerful libraries like scikit-learn. Honestly, it's the perfect sandbox for building your very first classification models. Moving right along to part four, training, testing, and validation. How do we know our model is actually learning and not just memorizing the data?
Well, a foundational best practice in machine learning is splitting your data into separate training and test sets. Usually we do a 70-30 or an 80-20 split. This guarantees that we train the model on a large chunk of randomized rows, but we hold back some unseen data to test it on later. And guys, randomizing beforehand is absolutely crucial. If you don't shuffle it, you might accidentally train your model on a neat pile of just zeros, leaving it totally blind when it finally encounters a 9.
You have to completely separate the training data from the testing data. Think of the training data as the practice gym. It's where we fit the model and adjust all those parameters. But the test data, that is sacred. It is used exclusively to evaluate true predictive accuracy. It's the only way we know if the model can actually hit the bullseye out in the wild, on images it has literally never laid eyes on before. But what if your data set is just too small to afford a simple split? Well, that's where a brilliant technique called K-fold cross-validation comes in. It smartly chops your data up into rotating buckets. It trains on a few buckets, tests on the remaining one, and just keeps rotating through until every single piece of data has been used for both training and testing. It's incredibly efficient and maximizes your data without sacrificing that rigorous evaluation we need. Okay, part 5, deep learning for images. This is where things get really, really exciting. When traditional machine learning starts hitting its limits with super complex images, we turn to deep learning. And what actually makes deep learning deep? It's all about stacking node layers, usually at least 5 to 10 of them, but advanced object recognition can use upwards of 150 layers. These layers act like building blocks. The early layers might just pick up on simple edges or a diagonal line, but as the data flows deeper into the network, it combines those edges to recognize textures, complex shapes, and eventually, highly specific objects. To put this into perspective, there's this classic facial recognition study from Carnegie Mellon University. They managed to successfully train a neural network using a shockingly small data set, just 624 grayscale images of faces at a tiny resolution of 120 by 128 pixels. And the goal wasn't just to spot a face. The network had to classify exactly which direction the person was looking, left, right, straight ahead, or up. And no way, it actually worked beautifully. Step by step, the deep network progressively combines those learned nodes. First, it detects the simple edges of a face, then it figures out the shapes of the eyes and the nose. And finally, it classifies the complete set of physical features. It's the exact same underlying concept, whether the network is classifying a cat, a human, a plant disease, or figuring out where a driver is looking. Finally, part 6, real-world AI applications. Let's talk about how this tech impacts our daily lives. Because these algorithms, they are powering some incredible real-world computer vision tasks right now. I'm talking about optical character recognition, or OCR, which can instantly read and digitize printed documents. They power complex object detection, which is literally what allows a self-driving car to instantly tell the difference between a pedestrian, a stop sign, and another vehicle. They're even used on fast-moving manufacturing assembly lines to automatically spot microscopic product defects. Which leaves us with a pretty fascinating thought to end on. We've gone from analyzing flat 28 by 28 pixel grids to building neural networks that can drive cars and diagnose diseases. With machines constantly improving their ability to learn and classify complex visual patterns, what kind of hidden insights will they uncover next in your own field of study or work? Mastering these image classification pipelines could absolutely transform the future of your industry. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.